Would you like to go on a trip to Mars? While that sounds interesting, the time the journey takes will discourage many. Using current rockets, the shortest time to get to the red planet is 5 months, and you will have to target a small window that comes once every 2 years. While this piece of information might not mean anything to most people, for Elon Musk it means the failure or success of one of his passionate dreams, setting up people to live permanently on Mars. To make the travel to the planet more bearable, one of the options Musk is considering is warp drive, which promises to reduce the trip time by a large order of magnitude. What is warp drive and how fast can it help Musk put people on Mars? Join us as we dive into how Musk reveals the warp drive Starship. Musk has been pushing SpaceX to speed up the development of the Starship. He even asked his engineers to sacrifice their Thanksgiving weekend to fix a problem on the Raptor rocket engine that powers the Starship. While it's a big deal to some of the employees and other non-SpaceX employees, working through the weekend does not faze Musk, who has slept on the factory floor of his companies before. There is a reason Musk wants the Starship to be done as soon as possible. This is because while NASA is content to wait until 2033 to send an astronaut to Mars, Musk wants to do so by 2026, which is just 5 years away. While you might dismiss the goal as Musk being over-optimistic as usual with his target, the billionaire CEO has a worst-case scenario of putting humans on Mars by 2031, which is still 2 years earlier than NASA's best plan. Apart from this, Musk thinks there is a window of opportunity available for humans to become interplanetary, and this is the first time the opportunity is possible for humanity. He wants to use the chance quickly as he is unsure the window will be available for long. When you are planning to move 1 million people from the Earth to Mars, as Musk wants to do within a short time, there are several things you need to consider, which we will briefly look at. The first is cost. The first thing to note is that simply having money, tons of it, will not get you to Mars. As Musk said while on Lex Fridman's interview, even with $1 trillion right now, you can't fly to Mars. You need the right technology, like the Starship that SpaceX is building. Even with the right technology, space travel is expensive. In fact, anything involving rocket launches is costly. That is because of the nature of rockets, which are traditionally one-time use vehicles. This mode of using rockets is ridiculous, as Musk pointed out. It is like buying a new car every time you want to go out. While it is mad expensive to do so, it is also complicated because you need a new car built to go out. Most people won't be able to afford going out if that is the only way to use cars, which sort of is what you get with space travel today that only the ultra-rich can indulge in. Obviously, that won't work for Musk, who claims there is a particular cost per ton to go to Mars that will ensure the city established there can sustain itself. Besides, there might not be enough ultra-rich volunteers willing to relocate to Mars, so the price has to come down for most people watching this video to even consider it. However, if there is any company that can reduce the cost of space wandering, it is SpaceX. The company already has a reusable rocket, the Falcon 9, but it is only partially reusable. The booster comes back and lands, but the upper stage is written off, which adds at least $10 million to each launch cost. This brings the launch cost to between $15 and $20 million without accounting for overhead. However, with a reusable spacecraft like the Starship, Musk says you can reduce the cost by a factor of 100, meaning you could have launches of under $2 million. This is the cost to orbit, and obviously the cost to Mars will be more, but if you do the maths by dividing the total cost by the number of people the Starship can carry, which is between 70 and 100, a trip to Mars is not so expensive. In fact, Musk has claimed if you want to relocate to Mars, you can fund your ambition by selling your house. However, even with the lowest price, there is another factor you have to consider when going to Mars: time. Apart from astronomical costs, distance is another barrier to deep space jaunt. Like it has been mentioned in this video, you need to budget at least 5 months of your life to travel to Mars. This could stretch into a year depending on when you take off. Now, what could happen if you spend 5 months in space? The journey will take a physical and mental toll on you. It is not a great idea to spend 5 months in microgravity conditions. You lose bone density, with the bones in your pelvic area taking the biggest hit. You could even get kidney stones and lose some of your bone's ability to heal. That is not all of the health implications, because your muscle mass and strength reduce, making you weaker. You also have to contend with radiation, which is plenty in deep space. If the spacecraft is not properly shielded, you will end up with more health complications. You could even go sterile and not be able to contribute to the gene pool of the new Martian community. And really, do you want to experience anything going wrong while you are out there in space all on your own? Because the more time you spend on the trip, the greater the chances of something going wrong. The best thing is to spend as little time in space as possible. Also, what would it look like being cooped up in the confines of a spacecraft with more than 90 strangers? Tempers will flare and fights can even break out. In fact, Musk recognizes this and wants to cut down the trip to Mars to a month or even less. This is where a very powerful spacecraft that moves fast comes in. Granted, Musk already has the Starship, or will have it. It is the most powerful rocket ever built, with the ability to launch more than 100 tons of cargo to orbit at a time, but an even faster spacecraft will serve Musk better. One technology that holds lots of promise is warp travel. As a Star Trek fan, at which Musk is too, you must have seen the technology in action in the fictional world. Musk has been connected to warp drive technology for some time. In fact, famous scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson took to Twitter to ask Musk to stop messing around with mundane stuff like rockets, Hyperloop electric trucks, and even Neuralink, and instead concentrate his effort on developing warp drive. While deGrasse's request was made in jest, Musk's response was interesting and shows he knows how best to apply the tech. He responded that setting up a city on Mars and regularly commuting between Earth and Mars will be a powerful driving force for inventing warp drive. Musk has repeated his claim that a Mars settlement will spur the development of warp drive technology in interviews. Now, how does warp drive work? The idea is to compress the space between you and the star or planet you want to go to. It is done by creating a bubble of flat space-time around the spaceship and curving space-time around that bubble to reduce distances. That way, you are not going to the star, but the star actually comes to you. Sounds a bit complicated? Wait until you hear the rest. To compress or warp space-time, you need negative energy or negative mass. Scientists have never observed negative mass, leaving negative energy as the only option. To create negative energy, a warp drive would use an amount of mass to create an imbalance between particles and antiparticles. This imbalance results in negative energy density and creates the space-time bubble. Now, the amount of mass needed to create negative energy is impractical because to create a 100-meter bubble, you would require the mass of the entire universe. This poses a problem because you and I need to live somewhere. A physicist has come up with a workaround though. Eric Lenz has published a paper that offers a solution to the problem of the need for negative energy. He showed how positive energy is enough to create a warp drive bubble if you take advantage of hyperbolic space-time instead of linear. This way, a warp drive wouldn't need to use negative energy. How fast can a warp drive spaceship travel through space? Very fast. It can go more quickly than the speed of light. To best grasp how insanely fast this is, the nearest star to us, the Proxima Centauri, is between 17,000 and 76,000 years away from the Earth using the rockets we have today. But with a warp drive Starship, it will get there in less than 4 years. A warp drive Starship will solve many of the problems Musk has to deal with while promoting his Mars project. For instance, volunteers can quickly return to the Earth if they change their minds, making a massive difference in adventures like this one. Let's hear what you think of the warp drive Starship in the comments section below.